My name is Chris Shepard. I'm also known as 10 Magnet, and I'm one of the senior instructors here at Love Systems. I've been in this since the very beginning, basically, since it was since the pickup community, if you want to call it that, was an online message board. And I'll introduce myself a little bit. I got into this because I was never very good with women. I was a bit of a nerd in high school. I'd sit in the back and read like the New Yorker and stuff like that, and I had a hard time relating with the other like 16-year-olds in my classes. And I thought, for me, it was a realization that you could learn to be better with women, right? It's a skill. It's not a trait that you have, like, here's how attractive you are, there's nothing you can do to change it, or here's how attractive you are, the only way you can do better than that is by cheating in some kind of sense. It was when I realized that it is a skill, like playing guitar, or like making, or writing, or making art. We get better at it by practicing our skills and by pushing our boundaries. And so for me, when I was 22 years old, and I just had this idea that, fate is, you're just fated to a level of success or attractiveness with women, and you can't do any better than that. And then I started to realize, no, wait, there are things I can do, there are behaviors I can learn, there are skills I can learn that will help me with this, that I can actually get better. And that was a realization for me, and that's what got me into this, and that's why I started reading about this on the internet, and then eventually I started teaching it. I started teaching this back in 2003, really a little bit, and then got into it full time with Love Systems in 2006. I've been doing it for 4 years. But one of the other things that I work on a lot, because I like to write, I like to tell stories, and so I've been working on my storytelling ability. It's sort of a hobby of mine, because I think it's an important skill to have, all right? Because what this lecture is about it's about more than just storytelling. It's about building a strong self-image, all right? Because the way you see yourself is going to come out in the stories you tell, all right? And you want to see yourself as a certain kind of person. And if you see yourself that way, you're going to tell these stories that naturally communicate your self-image, right? It's about being a good conversationalist, because conversation a lot of time involves a lot with stories. And if you do it wrong, you can be a braggart, or you can be a bore, you can be any one of these terrible things that women sort of detest, that women wind up dating anyways, but you can be better than that. It's about cultivating and communicating an attractive character, okay? It's about becoming an interesting person and then being able to express that interesting person to the people around you. And about identifying and understanding your audience, because one of the big flaws that storytellers do is if you don't know where your audience is coming from, if you're not able to empathize with them, you're not able to communicate with them properly. And the reason why you need it is because game. You can go and meet a girl and make her laugh and play some games with her and make her giggle and stuff like that. But that only gets you so far. Sometimes if you're aggressive, if things are going right, if you're in Vegas, sometimes that's all you need. But when you're back in your real life, when you're dating the women especially high quality women, they want to know who you are. All right? They want to feel like they know you before they're going to open up to you. All right? And storytelling is how you do this. Storytelling is one of the key ways which you can communicate who you really are. It's about communicating, strong narrative about your life. And dates. If you're going on a date, who here runs out of things to say on a date? Yeah, everybody, right? There's always these awkward silences, and storytelling is about plowing through them, and about just preparing that level of material you need And I don't like calling it material, but you need to keep, if you want to go on a big long date with a girl, you need sometimes 5 hours of conversation. It's hard. And storytelling is one of the key things that's going to help you get through that, and get through that in a way that's going to be interesting. And also, it's useful throughout a relationship, because again, storytelling is really about communication, and your communication skills are helpful in life. So, what are the elements of a good story? Number one thing is, good stories are about characters, all right? Guys, we tend to do this, especially people who are boring, they focus on plot. A story is not about a plot. It's not about, I did this, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then I did this, and I did that. That is a boring story, all right? As men tend to be driven towards plot-driven stories. If you look at the television shows and the books that men tend to consume, it's sci-fi and action, where it's mysteries and stuff like that, where there's a little twist at the end, and it's like, how are they gonna defuse the bomb? We want to know how they defuse the bomb, right? That's all plot-driven stuff. When you look at the stories that women are interested in, and especially the stories and just good literature, the best versions of stories that men are also interested in. And even things like, good comedy, like 30 Rock is a great comedy because you feel like there's all these different characters that you kind of understand, Or like Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld was about the characters. All they would do, they had these, 4 or 5 characters that all had these traits. You knew them. You knew how they would react in a certain situation. And all the writers had to do is take these 5 ridiculous people and then just add one little change to their life. Like all of a sudden, the greatest soup restaurant opens down the street from Jerry's house, but the guy is a jerk. And you just put all these characters into the situation, and the story flows naturally from these characters and the situation they're put in. That's the way good stories work. All right? Good stories are about these characters that are believable. And like the whole thing, people will accept a terrible plot if you believe the characters. Like, who here has seen Inception? Right? Pretty big movie. It's out these days. All right, Inception has really a ridiculous plot. They have this technology that lets you get into dreams, and then there's all these rules and stuff like that. And it's just absurd, the technology and the sort of world that they're in, right? But you accept it because you like the characters, and because you're like, okay, so you just stick a needle in somebody's vein, and they go to sleep, and then you can get inside their head and make stories. Like, it's so ridiculous. But but we accept it because it's just a plot. It's just a plot problem, and we're willing to overlook that stuff. But man, if you have a character that is like a big jerk all the way through the film, and then all of a sudden, for no good reason, he starts being nice, it infuriates you. Right? You hate that movie because you're like, what the hell? He just all of a sudden turned nice. Like you get, and you won't forgive. People will forgive any kind of plot ridiculousness. All right, but they will not forgive a character that is not believable. A character that is not believable makes a movie crap. All right. You are going to be the main character in most of your stories. That's what it's about, and that's why it's about communicating. That's why storytelling is so tied up with comfort and with building really solid game. Okay, building a really solid connection with a woman. You are exposing your character when you're telling these stories. That's what it's really about. It's not what happened to you. All right, she doesn't care about what happened to you. It's who you are and how that story reflects who you are. That's the moral of the story. Guys, we tend to, again, we don't so much look at things that way. We're not trying to necessarily pick apart people's personalities and learn a whole ton about them. All right? Like if I tell a story about my trip to Thailand, I'll be like, oh, I went to Thailand last year, and I went to this great, beautiful island. And my buddy will be like, whoa, wait. How did you get to Thailand? And like, what flight did you take? Oh, how much was that? Where did you stay? How expensive is Thailand? Right? And you know why guys ask those kinds of questions? Because they're planning their own trip to Thailand in their head, and they're laying out the budget, right? Because that's what guys are thinking about. We're like, wait. How much did it cost them to get there? $900. Jeez, I got $900 in my bank account. I want to go to Thailand. Women, on the other hand, they're not thinking about that kind of stuff. A woman who is interested in you, right? And she has to like you first, right? She has to have attraction for you. But once she is interested in you, she is interested in learning more about your character. Too early, it's not gonna do anything. So you build attraction and comfort by expressing an attractive character, okay? And you can build a lot of attraction doing this, all right? Like, we see attraction as going out into a club and being like laugh, 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 girls like giggle, 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 you know. You make her feel a little bit, you know, you play with her emotions a little bit in the club, and then she wants to make out with you, she's all over you, okay? It doesn't have to work that way. That's one way of picking women up, by bringing up their buying temperature, basically. But the other way, and the way that I do it at least half the time, is you meet a girl, she likes you, she's a little bit on the fence, you get her phone number, but like she's not like, oh my God, yes, take my phone number, oh my God, you're the most amazing dude. She's like, yeah, you're cute, okay, I'll give you a shot. And then in comfort, you tell these stories. You represent yourself as this character, this guy who has his shit together, and she becomes attracted to you that way, all right? And that's the way I often do it. Honestly, it's the way it often works with me if I'm picking up women who are basically sort of physically out of my league. Like, I do a way better building strong attraction and comfort than getting them all over me in the nightclub. Because, I mean, I got a pretty good game, but it's easier for me to build that kind of slow attraction than it is to get some like 10 slobbering all over me, you know? So you're building attraction and comfort by expressing an attractive character. Also, you're engaging her by talking about your friends in the story, enemies, other people, right? These are what make your stories work. Guys tend to focus on logical details, all right? How did, you're telling a story about how you went to Thailand or something like that, how you went on this trip. They'll be like, oh, well, I had 2 weeks off vacation and I booked the flight online, and all that stuff is terrible, brutal stuff to talk about. You want to leave out the logical details. Women don't care. They don't care how you got to a place or how these things worked. They don't care about the logical details. It's just got to make emotional sense, and she'll fill in the blanks. All right, so use only the minimum logical details. So I'll give you an example of a story. I was in Australia a little while ago, and we went to this beach north of Sydney, and it was a really nice place. But we went to this bar that actually was kind of rough there, and we didn't realize it when we got there. Me and Cajun will walk through the door. And the first thing that happens is we got this guy, we hear these voices call out, "Looks like a couple of faggots walked in here." And I'm like, all right. And I've got like a big handlebar mustache, and like my hair's kind of long at this time, so I look like a bit of a freak. Cajun, is wearing like some shirt that he actually bought in like 1994. And I'm like, I just look at the guy and I go, where I come from, it's the faggots who have the fake tans and the ponytails. Because he's got a ponytail and he's all tanned. It's not a fake tan, but anyway, I got to say something back to this guy, right? Like, you can't just let a guy do that. I'm like, all right, no, you're a homosexual. So anyway, the guy comes, he looks at me, he's like, right, my name's Steve. Nice to meet you. Where are you guys from? I hope you guys all appreciate my Australian accent. I worked on this very carefully. And we do this kind of like staring one another in the eye, like shaking hands kind of thing, but at least he knows like I'm not like a total pushover. And I'm like, oh, I'm from Canada and stuff. And this guy, Steve, has a friend, Dave, and Dave is completely blitzed. It's like 2 p.m, right? But this guy is like off his rocker. And he's doing the same thing with Cajun. And so he looking Cajun in the eye, and he's like, oh, nice to meet you. And he goes to Cajun and he goes, "You think you're tough, I?" And Cajun's like, "Yeah." And the guy rips off, he rips open his shirt, and he's got this tattoo of like 2 guns, and says Ned Kelly forever or something like that across his thing. And Ned Kelly is this like Australian hero who's just like some sociopath who killed like 17 police officers, and he's famous in Australia. He's like a folk hero. and Cajun goes, "Oh, that's pretty original." Insulting this guy's like prison tattoo, basically. So the guy just backhands Cajun, and all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell is going on, man? I'm like there's going to be a fight basically going on, and my guy grabs his buddy. He's like, "Dave, what the hell are you doing, man? Stop it!" And basically gets this guy, sits him down, pulls him back. This guy is just blasted, and we decide all right, hey man, we're gonna buy you a drink. We're really sorry about this. So we're like, okay, you can hit my friend, but as long as you buy me a drink, that's all right. And that was this guy wound up actually getting kicked out of the bar like 30 seconds later, being chased out of it basically by a waitress with a broom. And that was my first experience in Australia. And we had a whole bunch of adventures after that. But that story is an example of a pretty decent story, a story that I'll tell fairly often. It communicates some stuff about me. It's got some interesting characters in it, right? Now, do you know where I was when this story took place? It's Australia somewhere, a bar, right? I don't explain where I am. I think I said it was north of Sydney or something like that, right? I don't explain where I am. That's not important. That is a plot detail that I left out. Do you know why I was in Australia or how I got there? No, it's not important. I left that out. All right, the story, I just set the scene just enough so that you understand. I think I said it was a slightly dodgy bar. And I start with the characters, basically. The story really starts when I walk into this bar and you hear this, and I play out the character. He's got this sort of ridiculous Australian accent, and he's being a dick to me, all right? And you get a little bit of feel for him. You get a feel for Dave. You get a feel for Cajun, and a lot of my stories that I tell involve Cajun doing things to get us in trouble and me getting us out. That's like a theme. But that's what I'm focusing on, the interaction. I focus on how I felt. So all of a sudden, this guy smacks my buddy, and I was ready to. I was like, "What the hell's going on? I'm going to fight you." Basically, I'm communicating that kind of stuff. I'm communicating my character in there. Okay, it's a story where you could really sum it up. You could sum up the plot in about 10 words. You could sum up the plot and just say, I went to a bar, some dude yelled something rude at me, I said something back to him, Cajun got punched in the face, and we got a free beer. Right, that's all that happens. And the rest of it is character development. All right? The goal of a good story is not to convey information. Again, this is what guys do. Guys are always trying to get down to business, right? When we're talking, when we're interacting with one another, we're trying to teach something, to learn something, to share some information, to plan something, to brag. All right? And for women, one of the primary things that they're doing in conversation, and this is why, studies show they say twice as many words per day, they use twice as many minutes on their cell phone and stuff like that. Women are interested in better knowing, better understanding the people around them. And the idea of a good story is to make her experience what you experienced, or to make her experience something similar to what you experienced. Make her feel the emotion that you felt. All right? Or at least make her empathize with it. You want visual details and emotional details. What you were feeling in the moment, right? How did I feel when I heard that guy, yell at me? I felt like I can't let this slide. was basically my feeling, all right? It's letting that knowledge that that's my reaction to that kind of situation is an insight into my character. Why I did the things I did. And shorter is better, okay? Here's what a boring story is. A boring story is just a story that's too long. People who are boring, probably everybody knows some. If you don't know anybody who's boring, you may be the one in your social group. But boring people are just people that don't get to the point. All right? So you're talking about your character. What are the character traits you want to try and communicate? Right, these are related to the attraction switches. Like basically they're the same concepts. You want to communicate strength, loyalty, courage, and virility, pre-selection by women. These are things that you want to you want women to see in your story. You want to see yourself as this kind of person. And if you can do that, your stories will start to naturally take the right shape. So strength. One of the things that I'm always doing is, and the one thing that a lot of guys who tell bad stories do wrong is they don't use the active voice when they're talking about themselves, when they're talking about things that happen. So if I'm telling a story about, me and my buddies wanted to go on a road trip we wanted to go on a road trip, all right? I'm going to say, I wanted to go on a road trip. I brought my buddies along, all right? I am making myself, at least anytime there's a good decision being made, I'm going to take credit for that in my stories. And it's not being dishonest. It's just seeing yourself as being the, you're the person who makes the decisions in your life. So it's not, we decided to go on a trip, or my buddies wanted to go and I came along. It's, I wanted to go. You're the person, you're doing things that you want to do. All right. My grandfather was great for this because he was in World War II and he fought in North Africa. And growing up as a kid, I thought that my grandfather was like a general, like leading the fight against Rommel in North Africa. And he'd be like, so we had Tripoli surrounded, and Rommel was trying to get supplies through at night. But we mined the harbor. And I was like, oh, good idea, Granddad. Mine the harbor, that's the way to do it. But he identified, he felt like he was a part of that, right? So it was him and his guys that were doing this, and he wasn't going to play down his role in it. So strength is the ability to survive and thrive in tough situations. All right, you want to tell stories that make you look strong. You don't want to tell anything that makes you look weak. And and you can express vulnerability. You don't have to pretend you're some kind of Superman. But definitely, you can see things as, you can see your life as a series of struggles where you've gotten stronger each and every time, or you can see your life as, like the defeats that maybe you've had in your life as being real defeats that messed you up. So, for example, you say you can, if you used to drink too much when you were in university, you can say, oh, well, I drank too much in university. I'm an alcoholic and I can't touch alcohol anymore, right? Or you can say, listen, I partied a lot when I was younger. I did some wild and crazy things. I've got a crazy past, but when I turned 25, I decided to straighten things up, and now I stay on the straight and narrow, and I'm better for it. You can frame that story as, this is me getting stronger, or you can frame it as a story of weakness, right? And it's just the way you tell it, all right? So always remember that. It's the way you see it in your mind that's going to determine how the story naturally flows from you when you're telling it in the situation. Social strength, again, you want to see yourself play the leadership role, right? Strength of character, that is somebody who trusts their own judgment, and your vision of reality Your idea of the way the world ought to be is the way that is what you impose upon your surroundings. All right? So it's a complicated one. I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But loyalty, right? It's the right balance between selfishness and altruism. It's taking care of the people who have earned your loyalty. So in my little story, my buddy Derek, he gets into a fight, and I'm just ready to go. Nothing happens. It's a situation that gets diffused, but it's just the idea that you're there for your friends, all right, in your story. So good stories, you don't want to tell stories about how you got into a fight. It's okay to tell a story about how you maybe almost got into a fight, you were ready to, and then nothing happened, and then because you were clever, you got out of it. But loyalty, you never want to communicate disloyalty, right? You don't tell stories about people betraying you, or about you screwing over your friends or anything like that, obviously. But like, loyalty is something that people don't, I think, value enough in today's society, right? But it is something that women find intrinsically attractive, right? This is what, if you look on online dating sites, women always say, "I want a good-hearted man." It's this phrase that you find over and over and over again. It's weird. And loyalty is about it's the difference between being a dickhead and being a bad boy with a heart of gold or something like that, which is something that a character, an archetype that women find really attractive. And the difference is loyalty, right? We look at characters like Tony Soprano, right? Every episode he's like murdering somebody, all right? He's sort of a despicable person to a certain extent, right? He's a criminal. But you like him. You like him as a character when you're watching that TV show because his good side is he's loyal to the people he cares about, right? Courage. It's about being somebody who takes risks. You never want to tell a story where I almost did something, and then I got scared, and I decided not to do it. All right, obviously, right? But you got to see yourself as somebody who defies the odds, right? You do things that are risky, that are maybe sound foolish. I mean, good stories are ones where you do something that seems foolish, and then because you're a little bit smarter than average, you're a little bit better than average, everything works out for you, right? Those are often very good stories. Successful risk taker, right? Not unsuccessful risk taker. Not stories where things blew up in your face, all right? Winners, and the reason why this is attractive is because winners take risks and losers learn not to take risks. All right? I met a girl last night who rode a motorcycle. She was talking about her motorbike. And motorcycles are an excellent example of risk-taking and how that's attractive, right? Because like vehicles, how attractive they are goes basically like, you got cheap cars, you got like a Kia, and like Honda's a little bit sexier than that, and then maybe like BMWs, and then Ferraris, and it's like, it's a status symbol thing for the most part, right? How much money you spend, kind of seen as being more sexy. But the big difference is motorbikes are cheap as hell, but women find them very attractive, and it's because it's a risk-taking. It's a risk-taking. It's to drive these things, so they're freaking dangerous, right? You have to be damn confident to ride a motorcycle. And last night there's some guy talking to this girl, and he's like, "Oh, I would buy a motorcycle." This is like the AMOG that was in my set. I would get a motorcycle, but I wouldn't trust myself on one of those things. And that's exactly why you don't. And that is a classic example of I am not a successful risk taker. I am. If you put me on a motorbike, I am going to have hamburger face in like less than 3 weeks. And getting a motorcycle says the opposite. You have confidence in your abilities. And again, women find this intrinsically attractive. All right. And then virility. It's the idea that you have women in your life. And they find you attractive. And women like guys who are, pre-selection by women, we've talked about it before, but it is something that women find intrinsically attractive. And also, just as an aside, an analogy that I use a little bit is like, imagine you were trying to hire a salesperson, okay? This is the sexy sun hypothesis. It's actually like something from biology textbooks. But imagine you were trying to hire a salesperson. Being sexually assertive is actually attractive, all right? And the reason why is if you were trying to hire a salesperson, them trying to pitch themselves to you would be an important element of whether or not you hired them, right? Like if you have a salesperson that you're hiring and they're like, yeah, I'll get back to you in like 3 weeks, you'd be like, screw you, you're a lousy salesperson. Right? Like I'm not. If you're not fighting for this job, you're not going to do a good job at being a pitch man for my product, right? If you're not selling yourself. And then genetically speaking, this is actually something that women find attractive. She wants a guy. The reason why women go for guys that are sexually sort of assertive is because she wants to have assertive sons, just at a biological level, right? And why, if this is something I noticed in boot camps, if you have a girl that really likes you, and then you leave to talk to your students for an hour, they don't understand that. It's very hard to explain, like, wow, I really like you, and I think we have a really awesome connection going on here, and this is great, and, yeah, let's get out of here, but I just have to hang out with these guys for the next hour, and then we'll leave at 2, okay? Bane of my existence. Because there's no, unless you explain, I am at work right now, and I cannot leave until 2. It is very, very difficult to make a woman understand that. Because you can't drop the ball, right? You can't drop the ball. But in the context of storytelling, and it was a bit of a digression there, but in the context of storytelling, you want to show yourself as a guy who feels comfortable around women. You're comfortable with your sexuality. You understand female sexuality. All right? These are all things that are very attractive. And the way that you communicate this in your story is by treating it like it's not a big deal. All right? So you don't go, oh man, I went to Vegas and the girls there are so hot. It was like awesome, like Boner City. All right? Don't do that. Don't do that. You go, you know what I love about Vegas? It's like you walk into these clubs and they're all being built up. It's like, oh, this is the hottest spot in town. This is where Kim Kardashian's having her birthday party. Like, this is so cool. And you got the Ferraris and Lamborghinis parked outside and stuff. And everybody walks in. And the thing is, nobody at the clubs are really particularly cool. All right? It's not something that's super, super duper elite. And you don't want to think that. But other people are falling for it. And so when you go in there, all these cute girls from the Midwest, they think you're the dude with the Ferrari outside. And that's what I like about Vegas. Is everybody's like, wow, I'm in over my head. This is like some hotspot Vegas club. Look at this cool, crazy cool Vegas guy. And fact is, you're just some dude from Vancouver, and she's just some cute girl from Delaware, and you're just on vacation for the weekend. But it's actually a good vibe. All right, that's something where that's a story that maybe implicitly implies that I met a lot of cute girls on my trip to Vegas, but not treating it like it was a big deal. All right, it's showing a little bit of insight into the sexual marketplace that's going on, but without being indiscreet, because being indiscreet, talking about, if guys tell stories about how they got some really cute girl or something like that, most of those stories, the moral of the story is, I got laid once. Right? Don't tell those stories. It's got to be like nothing. It's got to be it's like air to you, right? Female attraction is like air to you. It's like water. You live in it. All right? That's the attitude you want to take in your stories. That's the attitude of an attractive man. So you want to think about your character. How do you represent yourself to people? How do you think about yourself? Right? Do you see yourself as a strong guy? As a risk taker? As somebody who lives surrounded by female attention and attraction? Because you need to see yourself that way to create congruent stories that come from that perspective. All right? And if you don't see yourself that way, you have to start changing your attitude. You have to start believing you're successful with women, okay? That's an attitude that is very, very attractive, all right? And unfortunately, you have to have maybe two ideas in your head at the same time, right? Because we are at a class that's about learning to be more successful with women. Doesn't mean that we're not already successful with women, but it's hard to take the student frame and then go out and have that master frame, have that master attitude. But you need to try and cultivate it, all right? It's important. And it's not good enough to just be the person. You have to believe it, because that's what comes out in the stories and the way you communicate. So I said earlier, the way you get better at things is by doing them repeatedly, all right? If you walk around with your head down and you act meek, you are going to get better at acting meek. If you walk around with your head up high, acting confident, you're going to get better at confidence. And when you're telling stories, you can get better at telling stories and get better at living a sort of life of adventure by practicing. So first of all, picture yourself. Get up in the morning and picture yourself as the man you want to be, right? And go out and be that guy. Observe what's going on around you, all right? This is the source of your stories, all right? And a lot of guys, I do one-on-one storytelling exercises with guys at all my boot camps, and we're going to be doing in the breakout room, I think immediately after this, there's going to be a breakout room where we're going to be doing one-on-one story exercises with anybody, so you can tell me a story, and I will I'll just talk about how we can make it better and add things. But sometimes I get guys who are like, oh, I don't have any stories. And that's not true. There's nobody out there who has no stories. All right. You just haven't seen them. You haven't been paying attention to them. You haven't been opening your eyes to the stories that are going on around you. When I left for the super conference, I was leaving at 6 in the morning from my place in Vancouver, and I stepped outside, luggage in hand, waiting for the bus, and I looked to my right, and there was a double rainbow over, because it was all rainy and wet. And I thought to myself, this is going to be this is a good start to my trip to Vegas. And it has continued to be awesome. But that is a tiny little story that I saw because I had my eyes open when I was waiting for the bus on Thursday morning. All right? And you have to keep, and I didn't just see a double rainbow. What does it mean? I made it meaningful. Right? I made it meaningful. And that's the creative element of telling a story. It's you got to take these little things that by themselves mean nothing, right? There's just a rainbow, right? But I gave it meaning, and that makes it into a story, all right? And it's a little transition that I've been using this weekend in Vegas, and it's been working really nicely, okay? But keep your eyes open, all right? Tell stories to your friends, polish them, develop them, all right? I get up, I have a whole bunch of female friends, and one thing I like doing is calling them up. Hey, how's it going, Stacy? Oh man, here's what happened to me in Vegas, and I'll tell, a couple of my stories. And the first time through, maybe they're a little bit choppy. I need to shorten them down a little bit. I get a feeling for where the girls laugh, and for maybe things I don't want to mention that part of my weekend in Vegas. I'm getting a bad reaction to it. But I go and I call my female friends. I tell them what I've been up to. And I polish my stories. And by doing that, by telling these stories a couple of times, I'm getting it in my brain. Because a lot of time we have fascinating things that happen to us, and we forget them, right? Because we don't talk about them. We're like, oh, nobody cares. But you tell a story a couple of times, 3, 4, 5 times, and it sinks into your mind. And then next time a girl says anything about rainbows, I'm going to say, oh, I saw a double rainbow on my trip to Vegas last year, and it turned into the craziest weekend of my life. Here's the story, all right? And I have that story always on deck, basically, because I've polished it a couple of times and I've gotten used to it. Obviously, don't make things up, but you can tell a little bit of a yarn, all right? I will definitely change things to make them easier to understand so that I can just edit things down. So instead of saying, well, I ate an almond and actually I have an allergy to almonds, so my right ear swelled up, I'll say, I was sick. I had a cold. Why? Because sick is only one word. Explaining my almond allergy might take 30 seconds, all right? Things like that, absolutely I want to do. Also, giving things meaning. Being creative is an important part of storytelling. We're not talking about making things up, but we're talking about making things a little bit more interesting than what they are. And everybody does it, all right? And again, you must practice the skill to improve, so write things down. If you got the time, go out and keep a journal and write down some of the stories, some of the things that happened to you, and play with different ways of telling them and practicing them. Because, again, the secret is cultivating this skill, because it's a skill. And you just cultivate it by using it, by talking to people, by telling these stories, by making your friends laugh, and moving on. All right, guys. That is storytelling. We're going to have a breakout session in a few minutes. I'm going to be good for, we got 5 minutes for questions. But yeah, in the next room, we're going to have a breakout session. So if you have some stories that you like or that you're curious about, you can come, you can tell them to me and some of the other instructors, and we're going to give you some feedback, all right? Thank you very much. I'm Ten Magnet, a.k.a. Christopher Shepard. And thanks a lot.